In today's episode, we're joined by Rob Shaw, CEO at Hub. Thanks, Rob, very much for taking part in the podcast.
It's nice to see you, John.
Well, Rob, I've got a number of questions I'm going to ask you. I think there's about 10 questions in total. I think anybody that's watched this over the last year, it's a mixture of business and personal. I usually start with a difficult question, but I think yours is quite fascinating. So I'm actually going to start with something that's quite fun. It's a fun fact about Rob Shaw. For anybody that doesn't know you, Rob, tell us a fun fact about you.
I guess the one I like to lead with it because I never miss an opportunity to talk about it. I got into running about 15 years ago as someone who'd never run before. And a couple of years after starting running, I ran a big ultra marathon race called the Marathon des Sables. So it's 6 marathons across 6 days across the Sahara Desert. Amazing experience.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, I was speaking to my little 9-year-old daughter this morning. She's upstairs because she's off today school. It's a training day. And I always have this little thing where I say, the guest every week, I get my little daughter to give me a question to put to them. Now, I did mention to her that you did the marathons. I wasn't aware it was 6 in 6 days. And the question she had was, how long did it take you to do? But you said 6 days. How long? A whole day to do one of the marathons? That's incredible.
It's got a slightly unusual setup. You go out, you travel for 9 hours to get to the middle of the Sahara. You camp out in the desert every night. You do a full marathon day 1, full marathon day 2, full marathon day 3. On day 4, they call it the long day. So you actually run a double back-to-back marathon. So you run 2 marathons in one go. I happened to do it on the 30th anniversary of the Marathon des Sables. So they wanted to do something to mark the event. So they stuck a 10K on the end of it. So we ran 2 marathons and a 10K. So that took 23 and a half hours. We also climbed a mountain during it. And then the faster you finish that one, the more time you've got to recover. So that then you go out and do another marathon, your 6th marathon on the final day. So yeah, it's an unusual race, and running on sand is not an easy thing to do.
Can I just say, so I've only ran on sand once. And it's going to sound quite feeble compared to what you've just mentioned. Filey. I was in Filey about 3 years ago. Now, it's not the bloody Sahara Desert, but it was my first time ever running on the beach. So I said to my wife, I'm going to go for a wee 5-mile run on the beach. Now, I thought it would have been a lot more exciting because I had this vision of running on the sand with the sea. Now, that bit was lovely, but running on sand was ridiculously hard. I don't know how anybody can run marathons on sand, never mind the Sahara in the heat. That's mad. Congratulations on that.
It's an amazing terrain. There's rocky sections, there's sandy sections, there's sand dunes.
Yeah.
It does slow you down, and then at the heat, it's quite an experience.
Okay, well, that's a nice way to start. So on to a question that I'm quite intrigued in. Obviously, I've known you for, I think, 12 years. I've known you from your days at Epiphany, CreativeRace, Hub. How did you even get involved in digital marketing? Where did it all begin for you?
It was from a background in technology. Before working in any agencies, I worked in technology for nearly 15 years. I was a computer programmer straight out of school, worked my way up in some quite big companies as a software developer and a project manager, eventually became IT director and built some really, really big systems across the UK. And I found that fascinating. I've always found technology super interesting. I was never going to get the chief exec's job of the business I was in because technology wasn't the most important thing that they did. I had the opportunity to join an agency in Warrington called Latitude Group, which at the time was one of the biggest independents. And I joined them as their CPO, so their technology guy, but in an industry where technology underpinned what we did. We were a huge user of Google, a huge spender on paid search. And so understanding the underlying technologies, and we build proprietary technologies, gave me my first move into marketing. And I didn't stop from there. So it was moving into smaller, but much more dynamic companies and understanding how technology underpins it, and slowly worked my way through learning more about marketing to eventually integrated marketing, and then learning about creative services and production. And I haven't looked back, but it all originated from a love of technology.
So how did you meet Robin? Because I remember my first kind of career in agency side in Leeds was a company called Numwood. They were a market research agency who have since become KPMG.
My friend founded it. Yeah, Phil Rushton.
Claire Bruce was it?
Yeah.
So Claire Bruce was my former boss. And I remember Robin. Now, I was the head of marketing at the time, and I remember Claire Bruce gave me my first ever job agency side. And in the final interview, I remember saying to Claire, Claire, can I be honest with you? I don't think I can do this job. I actually told her, I says, I've no experience of agency side marketing. I've no experience of PR, brand communications. She obviously knew my background. She knew my CV. And she says, no, you're exactly the person I want to do this job. And I ended up, had an amazing 3 years working with Claire. And she obviously went on and sold to KPMG. Now, the thing I was going to say is Robin Skidmore in 2005, I remember taking a phone call. For anybody that doesn't know Robin Skidmore, obviously you're going to tell us a bit more. And he was pitching SEO to me in 2005. And I remember at that time, obviously said, no, I'm not interested. I had no clue about SEO, no clue about digital marketing. But since then, I've spoken to Robin. I've mentioned this story to him about he was the only person that ever reached out to me. That's how advanced he was then. So the question goes, how did you meet with Robin?
It's a slightly strange background, and it was actually our other business partner, Shane, who was the other co-founder of Epiphany. I'd had my time at Latitude Group. We'd sold to private equity in 2007, just completed an exit there, and I was actually about to join as MD an agency in Manchester. And then I got left a voicemail, which actually was from Robin, saying, oh, hi, it's Robin here from Epiphany Search, as they used to be called at the time. Would love to speak to you. And I genuinely thought they were a recruitment agency. And I pretty much accepted this other role and thought I better call those people back and just explain to them that I'm not on the market anymore. Called and ended up speaking to Shane, and he said, no, we're a digital marketing agency based in Leeds. And at that point, there were 20 people. They'd only been going a couple of years. I said, oh, I didn't realize that. And I went to meet Shane. It wasn't Robin, it was Shane, and I fell in love with the guy. And loved what they were doing. They were trying to repeat and exceed what we'd done at Latitude Group. I loved the ambition. They pretended they were twice the size they really were, but I was really interested in doing it again and being more involved right from the absolute grassroots. So it was real random chance. I turned down the role that I had in Manchester, joined as their MD, stayed there 7 years. We grew it from 20 people to 200 people. And eventually sold it to Jaywing.
Right. So obviously this takes me, my connection with Epiphany beyond that phone call from Robin was then 5 years later, I joined Sticky Eyes. Now, it was originally covering a maternity role for 12 months, which turned into 2 years. And basically, I hope I can say this on camera, but obviously I had no idea about digital marketing. Obviously I learned very, very quickly about digital marketing, but Epiphany, whenever I was in Sticky Eyes, who you'll know very well, were always seen to be the agency that we always discussed a lot about in our meetings. What was Epiphany doing? We were trying, I'm not going to say we're trying to replicate, but let's say Epiphany for me, I looked at and went, wow, this is a really clever agency and what they were doing. Whatever you, Robin, and your team were doing, you obviously did the right thing because you kind of were on the radar.
I was aware that we were somewhat thorn in the side of some other agencies.
Yeah.
And no, it was a great time to be building an independent agency because actually there was a really healthy rivalry.
Yeah.
And we would trade staff and we would trade clients. And actually, I think everybody was very respectful. And what I tried to bring into the industry and continue to try and do it to this day is a level of professionalism and a kind of growth mindset that I think a lot of agencies have adopted. And I think it all helps us compete with each other. It's the reason everyone talks about the Brownlees being so good in triathlon, because you've got two brothers constantly trying to beat each other. We had great agencies of Sticky Eyes, Search Labs, Branded 3, all vying for clients and for good talent. And we also all had to create an environment where people wanted to be there and wanted to stay there and be proud of what it was we were building. And I think that generated a lot of transparency about how we built agencies. And the nicest thing for me is that so many people from those Epiphany days have gone on to build their own agencies. At Robin's case, build another agency. And I think we did a lot of setting the foundations to that growth of the sort of northern agency scene.
Absolutely. Sorry, that question obviously took a long time. Apologies, but it is fascinating. Absolutely. So, okay. So how do you switch off then? I know you talked about running, but I'm looking at a picture of you, completely looks nothing to do with running, nothing to do with digital marketing. You look like you're deep in thought. How do you switch off?
Running is a great way of switching off, and I've seen some of the people who've been. I was watching Kevin Gibbons' episode of
Yes.
this. Fantastic guy, and I absolutely resonate with some of his answers. I think going away and running is a brilliant way of clearing your head, and so I still do that to this day. I've been a director of a running company for 15 years. You'll have probably run some of our races, Run for All, so Leeds 10K, Leeds Marathon, Leeds Half.
Honestly, I've done a couple of park runs and that's about it. The rest is just me going out running around Gaisley and
Well,
Eden.
you must take that. But then about 3 years ago, I started to learn silversmithing and jewelry making. It actually started because I wanted to learn blacksmithing. My wife and my daughter bought me a blacksmithing course for my birthday, learned how to use a forge, thought that was fascinating, couldn't really build a forge at home. So started obsessing over how to make rings and moving metal and melting metal. Consume huge amounts of content on YouTube. I get very fixated in things and want to learn every element of them. So yeah, about 3 years ago I started doing it. I'm still doing it to this day. So if I want to clear my head, I'll go down to the shed at the bottom of the
Can
garden.
I ask you, did you used to watch the program that was on BBC? I think it was one that me and my wife watched. It was about you
All
watched
the
it.
clickers.
Yes, absolutely amazing. They stopped doing that bloody program and we were furious because we watched, I think it was 3 seasons.
I am
It's
on
great.
exactly the same page. They did 3 seasons of it.
Yes.
And as I built my jewelry smithing studio, they stopped
Yes.
commissioning it.
Yes.
And I thought it was based in Birmingham, as a fantastic heritage in jewelry. Yes. And there's a real ASMR quality to watching someone crafting something.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love doing it.
So basically, I mean, I was never interested in that kind of stuff, but whenever post-COVID or during COVID, me and my wife have this routine every night. We sit from 9 o'clock to 10. It sounds boring, but 9 o'clock to 10, kids are in bed, a couple of biscuits, bit of tea. It's either the Great British Bake Off, it's the Great Pottery Throwdown, it's the Sewing Bee, it was all the glitters, it was all these kinds of programs, and she loves doing art. That's where I am at the minute. At the minute, I'm at that stage where I do my running, I do a bit of yoga, I do a bit of weight training, but I need a hobby. I need something different. And the kids have bought me these books from, I'm not going to show you them because it's quite embarrassing, but they went to Hobby Craft and they bought me little drawing books.
Yep.
Just to try and do some little drawings at nighttime. So I would love to do what you're doing.
It is just a great way to switch off, and no one starts off good at it, and I'm still learning myself. I'm learning how to set stones into jewelry now as well, but you have to focus on it and you have to give it. It's that kind of 10,000 hours principle. If you want to be good at anything, you've got to put the hard yards in.
So if anybody wants to buy some nice jewelry, have you got a shop? Have you got an actual shop?
Not at all.
Online store? No, it's just purely a hobby.
I have a wife and daughter that have far too many rings, and so I'll make them as gifts for people. I've got plenty of friends and family that have them, but no, there's no Etsy store.
So this is all interesting. This is kind of stuff I think if someone was to meet you, they have this picture of the CEO of the company and you're in meetings all day and strategy and all the headaches and all the stresses. But this is nice to hear this is what you also do. So I'm going to go on to the next question. Okay, I know the Winter Olympics is over, but I did put these questions to you prior. What was your favorite sport or moments during the Winter Olympics?
I think I jumped on the bandwagon. I was obsessed with watching the skeleton. I think the pressure that had been put on Matt Weston, a bit like Jess Ennis in the 2012 Olympics, poster boy for the Winter Olympics, and to watch someone, and it really resonates with me, to watch someone deal with stress that he did, focus, know when to deliver, superb. And then to watch the human side of him on his TikToks afterwards, celebrating in his personality. Sports people have always inspired me. I'm not an expert in sports. I don't really follow football or anything like that.
Yeah.
But understanding the determination it takes to achieve that top level of your field, huge admiration for it.
What a dangerous sport as well. Skeleton. Very, very dangerous.
70 kilometers an hour on your face.
I mean, obviously the luge looks bad, but going head first, completely different. Okay, so we've covered the fun fact. Okay, this is another one that's quite interesting. So the younger Rob Shaw, if you were to bump into the younger version of yourself, what advice would you give that you would definitely take on board and change? I think you've been hugely successful, by the way, so I don't think you need to change too much.
Appreciated, but what I would say is I wish I'd been braver, and I would absolutely say to my younger self, take more risks, be braver. And I think that comes from the first 15 years of my career working in very large corporates and progressing through to sort of director level, but doing the typical corporate thing. When you start working with agencies and you meet people who are genuinely entrepreneurs and are willing to take those chances, they reap the rewards of doing that. It's a completely different mindset. And I find it hugely inspiring. And I wish I'd probably been a little bit braver earlier on in my career to take more of those risks. And it's the best time in your career to be taking those risks, to try some different things. And I did do a massive industry move to move from technology to marketing, but I wish I'd probably done it sooner.
So now on to some very specific questions about digital marketing. In your opinion, now obviously AI is massive at the minute, clearly, but what is the biggest opportunity for digital marketers, let's say, even in the next 12 months, in your opinion?
I think there's two parts to it. One, we're still at the most measurable part of marketing, and we should never forget that, and we should embrace that. And actually, more of the above the line and creative channels are starting to get that level of measurability. Yeah. Well, yeah. we've grown up in that industry of understanding the cause and effect of digital marketing. So we should make the most of that, because we are the experts in measurement and attribution modeling. But I think the other one is a softer skill, which is supporting our clients, our CMOs, our digital marketing managers, to help them cut through the noise that is in our industry right now. There is so much change. And again, if you've worked in technology or you've worked in digital marketing, we live in a world of constant change. And the people who've done well in that environment are the ones who thrive in that constant changing environment. And some of that change is coming to the other parts of marketing. And our job is to help demystify it and to help separate the wheat from the chaff and understand what is really going to change our industry and what might just be noise right now. And our job is to be the subject matter experts and explain that in a way that makes the CMOs of our clients be able to express themselves at board level as well. So I think we have to help educate as well as use the technology.
Good answer, Rob. Now, on that then, I think it's kind of a byproduct of what you just said, the biggest challenge, because I think in many ways the opportunity is kind of on the back of the biggest challenge. So I think you've kind of covered that, but is there any other challenges that you think over the next 12 months, what would be the biggest challenges beyond what you've kind of covered there, let's say?
Yeah, I think there is a big challenge around the noise and the confusion. And I think a lot of people are using this noise as a way of, a bit like people used to sell SEO back in the day, of fear and this kind of snake oil sales, but don't worry, we've got the secret solution to this. And I think the more we can demystify that, the better. I think if I was running a network agency group right now, or a really big independent agency, then I would be worrying about my productivity and what my headcount means when there are tools that are automating the services that we've got. I think we are in the era of the fast moving independents who've been embracing this technology early. The ones who can show it in a quality production capacity are the ones that I think are going to do well. We set up a thing called Hub Labs last year, and we've got 20 people from all across the agency that work in it. That's a third of our workforce that are understanding what the implications, both positive and negative, are on the use of AI in our industry. And that can be from image generation, it can be from writing code, it can be from the implications of what it's going to mean for SEO. But getting on the front foot and trying to understand that, but then understanding commercially what does that mean for our business, I think that's the biggest thing.
I think it's interesting what you just said there. It kind of reminds me of it's back to Claire Bruce, because she kind of had this approach where she was trying to create like this 360 approach to trying to understand all the solutions, the problems, rather than the typical kind of research days. It was, you're either a quantitative research agency, qualitative research, where she kind of changed it all. A bit like what you said about the labs. She was trying to bring people from all the different parts of the business to try and solve the problem, And
I think if you've grown up from a technology background, you're used to constantly evaluating new technology and deciding whether it's going to be additive or dilutive to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Okay, Rob, back to, let's say, a more personal question about you. I think this one's about, what's your favorite album and movie of all time?
Album's quite a hard one, mainly because I have a wife and daughter who have fantastic musical taste, so I will always defer to them. I grew up as a teenager as a massive Frank Zappa fan, so I love Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch.
I've never actually heard of Frank, but I'll be honest.
Right, it's worth a research. He had an amazing career across the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
But where I come into my own is film. We are a film family. So my daughter's actually at university right now studying filmmaking. So it's one of our normal conversations as a family. And so we constantly consume movies. My stock answer, my favorite film is Star Wars. I am a massive Star Wars geek. I would say my more current answer is Interstellar.
Yes.
Although interestingly for a different reason, not because it's a great sci-fi movie, but because I'm a dad of one daughter. Interstellar is
Yes.
really about a guy
Matthew McConaughey
wrestling with
and
his
yeah.
relationship with his daughter.
Yeah.
And I can see that it absolutely resonates. I get emotional every time I watch it.
Good answers that, by the way. I would find it hard to answer that question, definitely, in terms of movies and albums, 100%. Now, what has been your proudest career achievement to date? Now, obviously, you're a well-experienced man. You've done a lot of stuff. If you could narrow it down to one thing, what would be the biggest career achievement that you're proud of?
I think it would have to be building agencies and growing agencies, and it would be Epiphany. I think it's only when you've gone through something like that that you realize how good it was. I think we had the right people at the right time with the right chemistry, with the absolute same shared ambition. We used to talk about aggressive organic growth, and we were an absolute steam train, the growth that we had. And I still look back on it incredibly fondly. And I've still got people who work for me today who were with me at that agency. I think I'm proud of it because, and I mentioned it earlier, seeing people go on from that agency experience and learn from the good and the bad, and then implement it themselves. And people who've gone on to develop their own agencies, or actually have gone client side and become marketing directors of great brands. And I just feel like, we had some involvement in their growth, and I'm really, really proud.
Do you know, it's a question I've started to ask a lot of the people on this is there's so many digital agencies out there, and there's every year there's more and more and more. And it's how do you actually in the current climate differentiate? How do you make your standout agency? I think what you've mentioned is good people. But if there is, how do you make a standout agency? Because now you're at the Hub. What is it you're doing there that's to try and make Hub stand out head and shoulders above every other agency? Is there any specific answer you could give to that?
We have an official line, which is everything brilliant brands need all in one place. If you ever saw one of our sales decks, my favorite slide, we have a Hub branded toolbox. As an integrated agency and a full service agency, we've got every possible marketing tool a client might need. Our skill is understanding what's the right tool for the job and which tools work really well together and which tools at a certain life cycle with a client, it's time to put them back in the box. If the only thing I sold was PPC, the answer to every marketing question you ask me will be, you should probably do some more PPC because it's the only thing that I've got. I think where we've come into our own, and this is an agency that's been going 18 years, it predates me significantly, is that it's always believed in doing the right thing. And the reason it's got agency with client relationships that have lasted decades is because we're recommending the right tool for the job, not the tool that we make the biggest margin from. And I think if you're trying to build a sustainable business, you are in it for the long term. You get to understand the motivations of your client, the markets of your client, and you have a really clear conscience about the recommendations that you're making. And I think if you do that, you can look yourself in the mirror and you can take pride in what you're doing for people. And we're in it for the long term.
Can I give you a compliment? Not just because we're on camera. It's very clear to me. I met you 2014 for the first time. And I always remember you, at the time you were Epiphany and you stood out because you had some Epiphany branding. It's kind of, I think you
had a white shirt with an orange trim on it, and I was obsessed with the color orange.
Right. So of all the things you've done, and clearly you're a successful man, it goes without saying. The one thing that stands out to me to this day from the first day I met you 12 years ago, and it is a massive compliment, your energy and enthusiasm comes across massively. It's not like, Rob, you need the money. I don't think you personally, I think you could quite easily retire and you're sorted, but you're so passionate about what you do. And I think one of the greatest things for anybody that works for an agency or any company, from my experience as well, is when you see your leader as passionate and as driven, that's inspiring for everybody under that team because you're pulling them. And I've worked for some amazing people and I've worked for some absolute terrible leaders. And it can have such a draining impact if it's not the right leader. But that comes across massively, and I'm just saying it while you're there.
Well, look, that's lovely of you to say it. And there is a cliche, but I live by it, of if you can find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I firmly believe that. We all have bad days.
Yeah.
But if I get really excited by people, And I get really excited by businesses, normally other people's businesses, our clients' businesses. So I'm always learning. And I think if you're excited about everything and you've got open mind to learn new things, then every day is a school day.
Great answer. I think we're on to the last question. I think you'd be glad to know, because you've answered quite a few diverse questions. The last question is probably a tough one as well. So, I mean, be honest here, AI, what's good, what's bad? Everybody's going to have a different take. In your opinion, what's good about it and what's bad about it?
I think what's good about it is that it does make people more productive. It can support people. I think about what we used to have to do pre-Google, and now I'm thinking about what we used to do pre-AI. And I think we're barely scratching the surface of what it's going to do for us. And yes, there is some really scary things about that, but the new tools it gives us, the capabilities it gives us, and not just from a marketing point of view, that's just from a global level of what it can do for world health and things like that. I think the bad is the fact that we are so early into it. I think the lack of regulation is absolutely massive. We've started doing generative AI for clients, but in an environment where there are no formal advertising standard guidelines published. The ASA has just published a few weeks ago their first set of 8 guidelines to follow. They're really loose, they're really broad. We look at the impact that AI is having on social media streams, and you've got kids and you're concerned about what it is that they're consuming online, and you don't know what's real and you don't know what's being generated. We have to get on top of that. We have to find ways of demystifying that, because otherwise it's also going to damage our industry. If we're trying to tell the story of a brand and consumers aren't sure whether that is a real brand or not, that's a problem for us. And we need to be the ones who are banging the drum for doing the right thing, telling the right stories, doing it for the right reasons. And that's the difficult learning phase that we're absolutely going through.
Okay, Rob, the last part here is there anything you want to share about over the next 6 months hub? Anything exciting going on that you want people to be aware of?
We're going to capitalize on a fantastic year last year. We've been investing for several years now in the infrastructure of our business, in the talent that we've employed, in the capabilities that we've got, and that's absolutely giving dividends now. We're going to talk a lot more. We're going to run more events. I'm actually in the top floor of one of our new buildings, which is a huge event space. We should probably do something with you, John.
Yeah.
Part of it is because we want to demystify and we want to help educate. And I think we've got a fantastic facility here on the outskirts of Leeds where we can tell our story, but help others educate what's going on in our industry. So yeah, expect more events from us, expect more opinion pieces from us.
Well, Rob, thanks very much for getting involved. It's great. It's been really fascinating. I'll certainly not be doing any marathons across the Sahara Desert. And definitely, I think my children would love to have a ring personally made for them. So, but I don't think I can afford it.
No. There's no costs involved. We'll have a chat about ring sizes.
Right. Well, thanks very much, Rob.